Hello out there in Facebook land. This is Tommy Valentine with Historic Athens. Thank you so much for tuning in. Since this is an episode dedicated to this moment in history, this moment in history has involved lots of technical difficulties. That's something that future researchers can look into. Hopefully by then you're on holodecks, systemic racial oppression has ended, and flying cars. So those would be three good things, I know. End of the patriarchy too. Anyway, uh, uh, everything else aside, we're really glad that you stuck with us. We weren't sure we were going to be able to make it through, but we have, and here we are. So you've tuned in to episode 42 of This Moment in History, COVID-19 in Athens, Georgia. This is our opportunity to talk to leaders around our community, elected officials, entrepreneurs, community leaders of all types. And today is no exception. Today we have the chance to talk to someone who, if they've already become familiar with you, I'm sure has quickly become one of your favorite new people in Athens, and that's David Bradley, although I'm sure he would object to new. He's been here for a few years now working. David Bradley is the president of the Athens Area Chamber of Commerce and has really worked to expand and transform their mission in very exciting ways. Some of you out there who are tuning in, who tune in dutifully day after day, may not fully understand the Athens Area Chamber of Commerce. Some of you may already be members. But today will be a great opportunity to find out more about David, as well as the work they're doing with the Chamber, including the critical work they've done in their rapid response turnaround to preparing local businesses to survive COVID-19. I see Dan Delamater is going to help me here because one of the points I always like to make at the beginning of the program, in addition to thanking our weekly sponsor, Athens Area Chamber of Commerce is actually one of our weekly sponsors. This weekly sponsor this week is Peggy and Denny Gallus, so we want to thank the Galluses. But this is not just an episode you can experience, it's also an episode you can participate in. So by sharing your comment live under the video, if you're on the Historic Athens page, we can actually work with your question, bring it on screen, and answer it in real time. Dan Delamater is helping us with this right now. I see Dan shared the following comment. Did David break the Facebook Live feed? That certainly needs to be part of our historical records. If so, I agree, Dan. It is 1:30. We usually broadcast live at 1. And I think it's important that we assign blame. And so we're going to assign today's blame to our good friend, David Bradley at the Chamber. Thank you, Dan, for tuning in. I see we've got about a dozen folks tuning in now. Thank you for sticking around for today's episode. I'm really looking forward to talking to David. He's a friend, but he's also an amazing community leader, and we really appreciate him. So I'm going to go and switch out this photo of David for the real thing, and then we will get today's broadcast started. So let's welcome David Bradley to our episode. David, thank you so much for being here with us. How are you?
Hey, I'm grateful to be here. I did not break Facebook Live. I mean, I hardly am able to turn a light switch on, much less like usurp a national media outlet. So thanks, Dan. Thanks for that. Thanks for your thoughts that I might have that capacity, but I don't. Thanks so much for having me.
David Bradley is able to give it as good as he gets. So we won't get into that right now, or else it'll take up the whole episode. But yeah. So David, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate your work. We really appreciate the Chamber. We really appreciate the Chamber's support for this series. I know our conversation today won't be as long as we were hoping, although we certainly would love to talk to you in the future, and we're proud to be members of the Chamber. But let's take some time real quick and really get to know one another and make sure our audience gets to know you. So can you give us a little bit about your background and how you found yourself at the Athens Area Chamber of Commerce?
Yeah, I'd be glad to, Tommy. And let me first say, and I'm going to say one nice thing about you. This is super valuable, right? Not only is it great to hear from 55 folks about what they're going through, but the archive of this for the future is remarkable. So thank you for that opportunity.
Of course, thank you.
I grew up. I grew up in Mount Airy, North Carolina, which is Mayberry. So, as many times as I've been called Opie or Andy Griffith or whatever, I grew up there. Went away to school at a small school in Greensboro, North Carolina, and came back to Mount Airy to open up or to work in, and ultimately run a manufacturing plant. We sold that plant in 1993 to a company out of Madison, Georgia. And I started selling plastic resin up and down the East Coast for people who are going to mold, your phone, your computer. And then I was loving life. We had identical twin 5-year-old girls and another one on the way, but I was on the road 5 days a week. So we realized I had the opportunity to become a better father and a better husband. And so went to work with the Mount Airy Chamber in 1998, and have had the good pleasure of being. Now this is the good pleasure of being in three. Now that my third community, I was in Mount Airy till 2005, and that was a really bizarre. Really daunting opportunity, which is just we had lost 6,000 tobacco and textile jobs.
Wow.
Prior year to me coming in. We only had 30,000 people that worked in town through the course of the day. So we transformed the economy into a tourism-based economy. We had a hand in that, and then moved to Statesville, North Carolina, in 2005, and really had to create from not scratch, but had to recreate a place of a sense of place in a community that would be attractive to 25 to 45-year-olds to call home. So I actually went to the Institute of Organization Management, and the preeminent professional development program of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. They have it in 5 locations across the country, and one is in Athens. You come for 4 years for a week at a time. And my first time in Athens was in 2001, and loved every bit of it. So when we had the opportunity was presented to come here. Gosh, I almost said to come back home, because it is home. We opted to do that. It's a blessing. We have identical twin daughters now who both live in Atlanta, so we see them all the time. And our youngest daughter is just graduated from Appalachian State and is getting married in a couple months or 6 weeks. So, but life is. Life with a family in Athens couldn't be better.
So, David, I think that you took over a historic institution, much in the same way that I did 2 years ago. You around the same time you took over. I think you like to joke you were what, 6 or 7 months ahead of me, right? And it's like one of these twins that you have twins. I know friends who are twins who, whichever one got out there 15 minutes sooner, they're the older twin. But so. You managed to take over this organization, and it's a long-standing organization, has a lot of tradition. In a moment, I'd like to talk about some of the ways you've brought some positive change to that institution. But there may be some folks out there that don't really know anything about the Athens Area Chamber of Commerce. Could you take a moment and just kind of outline what that organization does?
Yeah, so that's a great question, Tommy. We could get a room full of very intelligent, very community-oriented people. We could get them in a room, in our boardroom over here, and we can ask them what the Chamber of Commerce does, and they'd all sort of scratch their head. The Chambers of Commerce we're a membership-based organization. So we have a little over 800 businesses that are members of the Chamber of Commerce. Our job. A typical chambers is involved to help create a better economy for the community and its membership. Mm-hmm. And the bread and butter of the chamber is membership. So you spend traditional chambers spend a lot of time selling memberships and hopefully providing benefits that would provide support for those members. And I'll be honest with you. The Athens Chamber under Doc Eldridge, when Doc Eldridge came in, 12 years ago, he had a task. His task was to provide a more of a firm foundation for the chamber. There were some fiscal issues, some public perception issues, and he did a great job for 10 years. And so I had the opportunity to come in and we have in the previous 2 chambers, we had dynamic changes that we had to make to the organization, and because the community was calling for it, and so we've been able to foster the best team, the best staff that I've ever had a chance to work with. And our job
Mm.
is now to create something new and different here.
David, I know you're really passionate about your team. Some members of your team are absolutely people that are community leaders in their own right. Do you want to talk at all about the team at the chamber?
Yeah, I'd be glad to. Probably the first person I met here was Lindsey Brannon. Lindsey, when I came, we had two, Lindsey Brannon, and I mean, she's fabulous, and she was doing membership at the time. And so we had Lindsay and Joe, and we also had somebody that was handling our books. And we're doing fine, but we're not doing really. I think our role is to. I wanted us to reshape our role, and we couldn't very well do it with the workforce that we had. So now we still have Lindsay. Lindsay's in charge of community engagement, which does include membership, but it's really providing a service to the community in hopes that businesses realize that there's something more to the chamber than just let me just write a check once a year.
Right.
She does a fantastic job. In fact, I dare say that we're the fastest growing chamber in Georgia
Yeah.
last year, largely because of her. Kim Childs has, well, again, when I came in here, I was everybody who was here, only had experience in one chamber. So Kim Childs, we brought in from DeKalb, Georgia, from the chamber in DeKalb. Kim has been handling most of our special events and now actually doing a lot more communication work. Becky Beasley does accounting. She's does a fantastic job. She came over from Coca-Cola.
Wow.
She's been retired here to Athens, and it was a great find for us. Madeline McNeely is an interesting character, to be honest with you. Madeline is also from Statesville. So we actually had Madeline. I knew Madeline she just graduated from UGA just a little while ago. When I was in Statesville during the summer, she was doing marketing for a partner organization in Statesville. So it was a great opportunity. And last we have Daxter Selton, who just also left UGA, and Dax has been handling most of our our recovery and resiliency programming through COVID.
So, David, thank you so much for outlining the team. For anyone to earn the title "strange character" from you is really saying something. So, I want to make sure we spend the bulk of the time we have today on the way that the chamber has responded to COVID-19, because it's my perception, and I've shared this with you, that if Doc gets credit for building the foundation or rebuilding the foundation of the Athens Area Chamber, you and then Lindsay is a very public face. You and Lindsay have been out on the front lines with the rest of your team, bringing together a chamber that when I go to chamber meetings, it looks different than anything I ever expected to see at the Athens Area Chamber. A diversity of businesses of all kinds of people from different backgrounds, racial, social, economic status, business type. And so now, as we've hit the COVID moment, those businesses are sewn together and you've been providing services. And so I think there's two important parts we unpack there. One is the outreach it has taken and the philosophies it's taken to develop an increasingly diverse chamber. And then also your COVID response. So could we start on the first one here? It seems like you all have been very intentional about not only growing membership quantity, but also really expanding who's at the table. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I'd be glad to. And Tommy, I think the dynamic change was, and again, Lindsay deserves a whole lot of credit with this. We rarely talk about growing membership. We just talk about being engaged in the community, and if you do the right things, membership comes. And I think we've begun to see that. I believe that our overarching job now is to create a community in which 25 to 45-year-olds would want to call home. And that's not to suggest that me at 59 doesn't have the same interests at heart. But we understand that the economic advancements and economic development largely in the community is going to be driven by where that 25 to 45-year-old populace chooses to call home. So we have to help create a community. We have to help create and nurture a community that is really it's not just about business, but we have to create a community in which businesses have the foundation to be successful.
Right.
And building partnerships with historic Athens,
Right.
That means building partnerships with a variety of organizations and people throughout the community, and recognizing that we're all in it together for a variety of reasons, and we're all traveling down the same highway towards success, a successful community. We might have our own lanes that we travel in, and occasionally we'll get in each other's lanes, most of the times amicably. But so that's what I started to do. That's how I met you, Tommy. Was trying to build partnerships and to recognize that, it's we need to embrace the incredible diversity that we have in this community. And because of that diversity, we will attract greater diversity and we'll attract greater economic development.
Right.
So I think that's the path down which we've begun to trod over the last 18 months.
Yeah.
And it's been fabulous.
David, I want to jump in here because yeah. Well, real quick, before we get to COVID, real quick, I want to set the scene for that 1 second, which is also, I think both of us find ourselves in spokesperson roles a lot. And so as we're continuing this conversation, I know we're operating at a certain level, but I want to take it down to a very earnest level for a second, which is, I think that once again, speaking to maybe members of the audience here that aren't very familiar with the chamber, I was talking to a friend earlier today, and they were asking who I had on the show, and I said that it was David Bradley, who heads up the Athens Area Chamber of Commerce. And the friend's reaction to that was, "Oh, what do they do again, or who is that?" And they had this very fixed idea that the Athens Area Chamber of Commerce would be headed up by this very austere person that kind of had an in-group, out-group attitude, almost like they were operating a country club. And I think that one of the things that has been such a pleasure in getting to know you, and this is, I'm sure, true for anyone who's gotten to know you, is that, yes, are you passionate about economic development? Absolutely. Are you passionate about business? Absolutely. But there's also I'm not trying to out you as a bleeding heart or anything. I'm just saying that you have a deep well of concern and care for your fellow citizen that is amongst the deepest of anyone I've met, whether activist, community organizer, or anything. You care about people. And it's hard to imagine that you've only been here for a few years, because your level of care for Athens is every bit as strong as if you were, born in a local hospital. Can you talk about just where that care comes from and how you try to bring it with you when you go to work?
Gosh, Tommy, that's a hard question, and that's awfully nice. I really am appreciative of all the kind words, and stunned actually that they came out of your mouth. But life is not a zero-sum game. It's not I win, you lose. I don't perceive that to necessarily be the case. And that it's if we want an ideal Athens, what does that ideal Athens look like? It doesn't look like, oh, here's my wallet and it's 2 inches thick, and so I've got the ideal Athens. And ideal Athens is an Athens in which everybody has the opportunity to succeed. And I believe, Athens has an unbelievable potential to be anything that we want to be. If we want to be, we want the best of what Austin, Texas has, or the best of Nashville, Tennessee, or Madison, Wisconsin. We have the wherewithal to do that here. I'm not smart enough to be able to make all that work, but we can connect people to help. We just need to be a great connector to connect odd people to get together to accomplish great things.
Yeah.
I can't recall where, I can't, whether it was Stephen Covey or who, and I owe a lot to Stephen Covey. But the relatively recent book that I read noted that everybody's an expert in something.
Yeah.
Right. So if you just approach everything and every conversation with recognition that the person you're talking to is an expert in something, find it.
Yeah.
So I wanted to know about COVID.
Yeah.
What we did. So
David, can I transition into COVID with Dan's question here? Because I think it's a good one. So Dan says, chambers often need to be advocates for business in a community, but COVID has necessitated that some businesses shutter in whole or part. How difficult has it been to balance these issues? So, as Dan's saying, you're out here, you're working as an advocate, but this is a time where not every business is going to make it, and every business that is going to make it needs all the help they can get. Right. So how do you balance that moment as the president of the chamber?
It's a great question. It's a very hard question because you know that I don't know. I would expect y'all that about 30% of the businesses that we see out may not make it, and it's heartbreaking. We've tried to be a very vocal advocate for helping those businesses try to get funding from, never before has the federal government provided as much emergency assistance. It's unprecedented. And there's probably going to be more assistance coming down the pike. We felt like it was our responsibility, even though, you've got a lot of businesses who weren't making it before, and this is going to be much more difficult. Those guys needed to attack those emergency funds just as much as a business that has, really doesn't need it. Because these are people we're talking about. These are people, and these are employers. These are small businesses who were started because somebody had a dream, but they also employ people. So what we've tried to do, I don't know. We've tried to be an advocate for the business community every day. That is after all our largest job, I think, is to be the voice for the business community. But again, it's not a zero-sum game where the business community wins and somebody loses. We can all win. But I think the most important work that we tried to do is that we've been doing, I think, was providing businesses with fact-based information and providing them getting them access to legal help in most all of their questions, and doing everything we could to make sure that they were tapped into the right sources to find that emergency relief. So it's every day, that somebody's going to lock the door and they're going to drop the key off somewhere, and it's heartbreaking. But you just you just have to keep going, and taking personalities out of it, Tommy. If 30% of our businesses in town have to shutter, chances are pretty good, because of University of Georgia here, because Athens is a crazy cool community, that those buildings are going to be, those empty spots are going to be replaced by something else sometime down the road. And that's I don't mean to be harsh, but your heart breaks for those people who are suffering. But you also you also have to find somebody to fill that spot. Oh, Tommy, I have lost you.
You're fine. I'm here. David, I want to go back in time a bit and talk about the quick response to COVID. Yep. And just to set the stage here, we got started a little bit behind. For our viewers who tune in dutifully at 1, David, I'd like to ask if I could have 10 extra minutes with you. What I think would be good would be, and if you have a business call or a conference call at 2, I'll understand. But I want to make sure we quickly document for future generations the steps the chamber took very quickly to prepare for COVID, to make sure businesses and organizations like ours knew about PPP, things like that. And then I do need to make sure that we ask you the same 3 questions we've asked each of our guests. So do you mind if we take about 6 minutes real quick to make sure we capture that first part to talk about life right after COVID started?
Right. So, Tommy, that's many of us remember where we were at very important moments in life. I remember, gosh, I was in the Capitol talking to Richard Burr and John Boehner on September the 11th, which was just bizarre. I remember where I was when the Challenger went down. And I remember when it really struck home for me, which was on March the 12th. A bunch of us chamber colleagues from across Georgia were in the Marriott in Alpharetta for a conference, and up until that point, it was all happening out there somewhere. And it was that day that really you began to see it happen locally. The ACC tournament backed out. Was closed down. The NCAA tournament then announced they're shutting down. Businesses started really just closing down very quickly. So I was on March the 12th. On March, the following Monday, we as a staff met and we said that, our job, regardless of this program of work that we have had in place, our job was twofold. One is to be the disseminator of fact-based information to area businesses. That information is largely coming from the governor's office or the U.S. Chamber, or the Georgia Chamber, or the local hospitals. And we also wanted to be continue to be the connector to connect businesses with questions to answers. We were manning the phones endlessly, and then we needed to do everything we could to mitigate the negative impact of the pandemic. A lot of information is we felt like some of the most critical information was held by the local government as well as hospitals. So we started our weekly, or 2 calls a week with Kelly, with Mayor Gertz, and we held calls once a week with area manufacturers. We had calls once or twice a week with area small businesses. When the when the SBA announced their economic injury disaster loans, we held probably a Zoom call every day during the initial week when the economic injury disaster loan programs were being announced. We also had, and what was cool, Tommy, is we might get a lot of credit for some things, but really almost all of this that we've done has been in partnership in some way, shape, or form. So, for instance, Ilka McConnell, with the new Director of Economic Development, and Keisha Riles at the Northeast Georgia Business Alliance. If you put we have 800 members of the chamber. I'm not sure how many are members of the Northeast Georgia Business Alliance, but you can pretty much rest assured that that's probably only 25% of the business population in Athens. So we worked with Ilka to make sure that we were able to get all information to every business in the community about the economic injury disaster loan and the loan advance and the Paycheck Protection Program. So it was that first week was the first couple of weeks was quite a transition for us. We also began getting an eclectic bunch of community leaders. Just I think the following Saturday we were on the phone for about 2.5 hours, just talking about what are some short-term and long-term steps that we can take. And out of that call, again, to suggest that we had much credit, would be an overstatement, but BioPlanet, that is now operative at the Classic Center, and employing 130 people and getting ready to build a plant with 400. That evolved out of one of those Saturday afternoon calls where a quirk of circumstances led to one another. So we've continued on. We've continued on with that. Tommy, I'll be honest with you. I think the coolest thing that we've had an opportunity to do was in the Paycheck Protection Program. Those funds were only available through local banks, local banks that were SBA lenders, Small Business Administration lenders. And if you didn't have a connection with the local bank that was an SBA lender, you didn't have any access. You couldn't get those funds. So working with Envision Athens, the Northeast Georgia Business Alliance, and largely as a result of a conversation that Mayor Gertz had with John Williams at W&A Engineering, we were able to cobble together several banks in the area that would actually hear and see and help fund businesses that didn't have that direct connection. And we were able to connect close to 70 businesses with probably around $7 to $10 million that they wouldn't have had either way. So now we're working on a recovery program in conjunction with a bunch of other community organizations like yours, and that recovery program will be probably revealed or unveiled next week ish. It's going to be called Ready, Set, Go Safely. Again, to provide consumer confidence that we can get back out and start spending money in a safe, healthy fashion.
Speaking of getting back out there, I know that one of the innovations you all started offering back in late May, and I believe it's still up there, your website has a section for people that are still being cautious. I think you have an open for business section on your website. Is that right?
We do, and that was largely set up by Kim Childs just a couple of weeks ago. We asked the staff to try to come up with something that would be extraordinary. And so this was Kim's idea, is to develop this site called Open for Business. If you want to pitch that your business is open, or you want to pitch that you have some type of a coupon or special you want to add, pop it up onto that Open for Business site, and it goes out instantaneously on all of our social media platforms. It really just trying to build consumer confidence that we are turning the corner.
That's excellent. Thank you so much for sharing. David, let's take one quick moment. I'm going to thank our annual sponsors, and then we are going to spend some time asking you some of the same COVID questions we've been asking our other guests. So stick with us one moment. We did want to, again, emphasize that we're thankful for Peggy and Denny Gallus for sponsoring the 5 episodes this week, allowing us to further explore and document this moment in history. We have episodes every weekday at 1 o'clock until June 26th, which will conclude our 55 episode series. The names you see up here, the names and logos, these are local businesses that are supporting Historic Athens throughout the year. So, and helping us in our mission to celebrate and conserve community heritage in Athens, Georgia. Athens, Georgia is the classic city, and we want to make sure it stays classic. And so that means celebrating the unique history, telling the whole story, as Fred Smith says, celebrating history of people of every background and walk of life. And we were able to do that thanks to the people you see here. If you'd like to become a member or a sponsor, membership starts at only $5 a month. And I promise you, every member, it's like alarm goes off in the office. We ring bells. We're super excited. So if you'd like to become a member, membership starts at only $5 a month. You can visit historicathens.com. We would notice, we would thank you, and it would help us keep our mission going, especially in these uncertain times. What you see on screen right now is the list of guests. If you see a past guest you wish you had seen, make sure you visit the video section of our Facebook page for our archive. You can go back and see past interviews, and we'd love to have you do that. Each weekday after this episode, you can head over to our Athens Welcome Center page, the Facebook page for Athens Welcome Center, which we operate, and see one of their virtual broadcasts that they're doing every weekday at 2. It's a mixture of historic site visits hosted by Michelle Wynn, and then on Tuesdays and Thursdays, virtual workshops with Caitlin Short live from the Welcome Center itself. And then one last quick note we want to show, which is if you want a quick and easy way to support Historic Athens, You can visit historicathens.com. We've partnered with Satisfactory Printing, a local print shop, and local artists to offer these 3 local historic shirts. I know I just ordered the buildings one. It has some of the best buildings and architecture of Athens. Check it out. All right. So, David,
Yes.
if it's okay, what I'd like to do, first of all, you know what it's like. Obviously, you run the chamber. You know how thankful you are for your sponsors. So thanks for allowing us to say thanks to ours. And of course, we're very thankful that you all supported this effort as well. David, I'd like to kind of run through some of the 3 questions we've asked each of our guests for you. The first one's going to be really tough for you, I think, because of what you do. It's a little bit like asking you to pick your favorite child or something. But we've been asking people about the businesses they miss. And so we've been asking each person, if tomorrow you woke up, this was all over, you were free to go wherever you wanted, shelter in place wasn't a thing, every business was open, curbside or not, you could go right in. How would you spend your day? So where would be some of the places you'd want to go, David?
Uh, Tommy, oh gosh, darn your hide. The one of the first, Dawn, my wife and I love food. We can eat more than any 2 people ought to be able to eat, and so I would probably one of my first stops would probably be at Last Resort, because that was the first place that we came when we got here, and I could eat that 6-hour pig for 6 hours straight,
Yeah.
and then I'd probably be gosh, there's so many great favorites. At Five Bar, the white chocolate pudding, I could take a bath in that. It probably wouldn't be pretty, but there's just so many cool, innovative, fun restaurants downtown. I think I would just like, I wouldn't go home for a week.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I look forward to that week. I hope that week comes sooner rather than later. I'll join you for at least a day of it. So, David, the second question has to do with historic spaces. We're very excited about the way that Athens grows and develops over time. We know that every historic place we seek to save, someone had to build and develop at some point. But we also, realize that preservation is an important stewardship activity for any community. And we recognize that after a recession or a large event like a pandemic like this, you can have lots of pent-up development pressure. So we've just been taking time to ask each guest, what some of their favorite historic spaces or districts or places are just in Athens, ones that you hope that 50, 60 years from now, we've continued to preserve so that folks who live in this town can visit. Do you have any historic places that come to mind?
Tommy, this spot and I grew to really appreciate this a lot more during your event, during Porch Fest last year. The neighborhoods in the Boulevard and that neck of the woods, Normaltown, was just. I told Dawn, I thought, gosh, this is idyllic. It's just beautiful. And I'm so proud of you for Porch Fest last year, and hope that it can go a long way for a long time. And I also, there's some extraordinary architecture in downtown Athens, and I think in my mind probably the coolest piece of architecture is City Hall. But I'm also very grateful to you, Tommy, for opening my eyes to the recognition that economic development and historic Athens can work hand in hand.
Right.
We're not enemies. We're frenemies.
Frenemies. That's right. As we were saying before we got on air. Well, I think that, I appreciate you recognizing that. We're always happy when you invite us to participate in conversations about where the city's going, not just to save our historic architecture, but to try to bring a little bit of history to the table as we're making decisions. And also, our future and our past are inextricably intertwined, as I'm sure you and I have talked about. So, yeah.
I mean, and you know, you are historic Athens is just as much a part of economic development as we are. Right?
That's
I
right.
mean, we all play a part.
That's right. We do. And when we appreciate you keeping us at that table. So, David, my last question is very open-ended, but it's just this. We're submitting this interview along with the other 54 to our local libraries and research institutions, not only to document COVID-19, also to document who the community's leaders were at the time, how we spoke, what we did, what our technical difficulties were, all the things that we document in all these interviews. One day, I hope scientists can determine what color polo shirt you're wearing at this moment. I don't think they've invented a name for that yet.
I
Uh,
can promise it used to be a different color back 30 years.
um, but my open-ended question is this: if somebody's watching this interview, David, 100 years from now, what do you want them to know about this moment in Athens history?
God, I would want people to know that we can get through anything if you'll just work collectively for a common goal, and that find the points. I think where Athens will shake out is we will find those issues in which we have commonality, and we're going to choose to be defined by that as opposed to being defined by our differences.
That's beautiful. Well, I think that I hope we live in a future where people look back and say that's exactly what we did. Um, David, thank you so much. Stick with me. You and I are going to go off air. To our audience, we'll be back tomorrow at 1 o'clock. We have Commissioner Patrick Davenport tomorrow, Commissioner Ovita Thornton on Thursday, and Mayor Kelly Gertz on Friday. So please come back every weekday at 1. I'll close. We got a comment from Alex Sams. We love Alex Sams. Popped in to say, I'm told by many friends from out of town that the historic homes and buildings in Athens are a big part of why the trip here is so much of a treat. David, I should say before we go that you mentioned you've worked in 3 communities. I think all 3 are historic communities, right? You're on a roll.
Yep.
That's good. Well, we hope to keep you. So thank you to Alex for his comment. Thank you to Dan for his comment. Thank you to everyone who tuned in. David and I are going to go off air. We'll see you tomorrow at 1 o'clock. Stay safe out there. Thanks a lot.